cold silence of space only punctuates the feeling of death that emanates from this virtually lifeless planet. Only one thing is alive and well here. Evil. And it must be destroyed, decimated, exterminated. But first, it must be found.
The late 90s were a different breed for video games, where late icons from different properties started to go into 3D, from Legend of Zelda, Sonic, Super Mario, Kirby, and most importantly Metal Gear and Contra and Castlevania. But Samus wouldn't get hers until years later, with one of the most important games inside the Metroid series. One of the most popular Metroid games of all time, Metroid Prime for the GameCube. This game would be the first Metroid game that has been released since Super Metroid that came out 8 years prior to Metroid Prime in 2002, which solidified itself as one of the best games to own on the Super Nintendo back in the 90s, and it's still one of the best games to this day. Hell, if you even want to go to Metacritic, Metroid Prime is still one of the most talked about games to this day. After the extreme popularity, 2 years later, we then got a sequel, Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. And now it's 2025, where Metroid Prime 4 is only a month away, and as amazing as that is, we still need to recount the history of what made Metroid Prime 1 so important, and what made it just so beautiful to explore the wilderness and the environments and going against enemies. Which, before we start, one of the best ways to experience Metroid Prime 1 is actually through the remaster that Nintendo Switch actually released not too long ago. So go ahead and pick yourself up a copy and play along as we talk about it. My name is Red SafePoint, and welcome to Metroid Prime 1. If you're not familiar with Metroid, it's a series about Samus Aran going after space pirates in the near-distant future. I know that's just a pretty much summary of all the games, but let me explain. In most of the games, Samus's job is actually just going after a space organization group that does illegal activities, and it's been like this since the original games. The game begins when Samus goes into an abandoned ship to just find out that it's filled with space pirates before having to pretty much escape, just like in every other Metroid game, to then head to a nearby planet that's filled with dangerous animals, obstacles, and pirates to retrieve all her gear that she lost. Now, equipment-wise, you have your standard missiles, charge beams to the Morph Ball. Very reminiscent of how Super Metroid was back in the day. But instead of being a side-scroller, Metroid decided to be a first-person shooter, which was a first for the series and for the first for Nintendo, which added so many cool details like visual descriptions for the items or even the rain hitting the visor. It was such an amazing little detail for the time and honestly groundbreaking. To even the steam from heat fogging up your visor, it was really groundbreaking for the time actually. Now, visually, the game is outstanding in the graphics department. Even for its time, it still looks and feels amazing. This game graphically also just enhances everything about it, from transitions to other areas to even the environments when you go into new areas. It's just phenomenal in the way that it just makes everything just look so beautiful. There's also something just beautiful about the soundtrack. It's minimalistic just sound, giving you something both familiar and distant. It's an absolutely haunting and beautiful soundtrack that just embodies the most different type of sound. It definitely helps that the original composer of Super Metroid made the soundtrack. And I'll give you an example of one of my favorites. Well, now we know that the game has an amazing soundtrack and visuals. What about the gameplay? Metroid has always been much more of a puzzle game than it is a shooter, and if you're not shooting and killing enemies, you're always trying to figure something out. The terminology in which this game falls under is actually called a Metroidvania, which is when you backtrack to older areas to explore or get upgrades. And there's no better example of this genre than with Metroid Prime, especially when you get your upgrades later and always come back to earlier areas, including all the way back to the beginning of the game. But if you ever do get lost, you have a handy dandy map system that tells you or gives you hints on where you should go next. But sometimes you need to find your own way of doing things or finding your own way to go if you want the best upgrades. In which most of the upgrades that you're going to be getting are the upgrades that you've gotten in the beginning of the game, which gives you a really cool kind of way to experience the campaign as you just try to rebuild Samus as what she once was. The most important tool that you're going to be using in your arsenal is actually the visor. You're going to be using it to scan places, get into doorways, find weak points, access what animals you're going to be fighting, and see their weaknesses, which is very handy towards bosses. See, you're not going to be just going willy nilly around with your gun and just shoot everything in sight thinking that you're just going to kill everything. You need the ability to be able to be precise. And you're going to also have to go and find upgrades in order to really finish the game. One of the first being a missile launcher, which can be upgraded to the super missile. One of the main upgrades that you can find is actually missile expansions, which upgrades the capacity of your missiles. The missiles are mostly used either out of combat or to try to get into hidden doorways or to open certain doors that, you can't enter. Which there are the heat resistant upgrades or the ones that help you move like normally, like you're on the ground when you're underwater. And then finally, you'll get the Phazon suit, which actually reduces the damage that you take by 50%. Or later on, you can get the grappling hook, which that explains a lot of things, or the thermal vision, which can help you in combat. Another cool one is actually the X-ray visor, which not only can help you find secrets, but also show you hidden walls or hidden platforms that you can climb on. Or maybe you're interested in the weapon upgrades like the wave beam or the ice beam. There's a lot of beams and weaponry in this game. Point is that if you want all the best stuff, you're going to have to find it on your own. It's really good to always check and backtrack, what you miss in case you have in case you miss anything vital or really cool upgrades that can help you along the battle. That also just what makes Metroid as a series, not just Prime as a whole, just so addicting is that you get all these upgrades and you just feel so powerful when you rail through enemies or find secrets. It's a dopamine rush. And it isn't just Prime that does this, it's just, as a series as a whole, and Prime is just one of the best examples for it. Even as something as simple as the double jump boots just make you and give you just this huge sense of accomplishment. There's so many cool upgrades in Metroid, and it's just an amazing time. You're gonna fall in love with it. The upgrades just make the game itself and the world just so much cooler. Like you think, like where did they find all this stuff? How did they invent this stuff? Like it's just a weird question you'll have when you play the game. But let's get to the meat and gravy of what Metroid Prime is, and that is the shooting aspect. Now, when it comes to the shooting in general, it's nothing to write home about. But the shooting mechanics and the way that the weapons feel is just something special. It's something that feels, sorry to say it like this, out of this world. The combat feels challenging. The enemies they themselves feel terrifying to fight up against. At first, you'll fight small enemies, but then later on, you're fighting full-on dudes with flamethrowers or jetpacks. It's just an amazing time. But sometimes, though, the combat itself can be a puzzle. because certain enemies could be weak to certain things. Like, for example, one enemy could be weak towards the fireball and is immune to the ice bombs, or one enemy could be immune to the ice and you have to use the fire bombs. There's different elemental enemies you'll encounter throughout the game, and if you don't take them down efficiently and quickly enough, things can go sour and you can die really quickly in this game. One important aspect of the backtracking inside of Metroid is every time you return to a room, chances are enemies are going to respawn. And sometimes they're going to have harder variants later on if you don't have the right upgrades. And you're going to die quickly if you don't got the right upgrades to fight against them. But mostly the enemies kind of serve as a way to distract you and get you away and trying to like kill you before you get to the next puzzle. I think the best aspect, in my opinion, of Metroid Prime has to be the boss battles. All of them are very unique and just very spectacle and very different from each other. All of them have the different strategy. You have to use different strategies against them. And it's just so fun and different. I always had a huge fun time playing against these bosses, and sometimes all of them or some of them can be just big old assholes that will take your time so much if you don't know what you're doing. These are just examples of how to do boss fight design. It isn't just about shooting it until it's dead, but also trying to find weak points or use the upgrades that you've earned so far throughout your journey and show how powerful you really are. It's just something really good about its design and its just amazing structure of gameplay. And the length of the game isn't really a huge issue either. It doesn't feel too long or too short. It feels around like a 15-hour mark. I've tried to check it every once in a while, and most people say it takes around 15 hours to complete Metroid Prime. And, I mean, it's not too long, but you would have a good time. You can always come back to it. You know, it's always something fun to return to. It gives you a lot of replayability to find secrets or try to collect everything. Example, tanks or markings on the wall that shows you secrets or more lore about the game's universe, or tells you more stories about the layouts of the planets and, you know, more about the areas that you're in. There's an almost timeless quality to the pacing. You feel like you get the right amount in your journey. You don't feel like you're doing too much and you don't feel like you're doing too little. It's just one of those games that you can easily pick back up every once in a while and just goes, yeah, and just go like, yeah, you know, I remember this place. This is something I've been to before. It's just one of those games. Kind of like how Doom is. Doom's the same way. Or a lot of other games. Metroid Prime is just one of those games that just has a special place in a lot of people's hearts because it's just so easy to pick back up. Look, Metroid Prime is just one of those games that's just absolutely timeless. It's a game that almost not existed at all. It was only created by a fragment of a chance when Nintendo really just took a chance on an American studio for one of the first times ever in its history. And we would have never gotten Metroid if Nintendo really didn't want to take the chance to make something new. And thank God for that, because Metroid Prime is still one of the best games ever made. And to be honest, I don't know where the series is going to go after this, especially after Metroid Prime 4 comes out. But again, since Metroid Prime 4 is coming out, let's hope that it's going to be as good as Metroid Prime 1. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. I'm planning on doing a review or a retrospective of maybe some other Metroid games, or Metroid Prime 4 when it comes out next month. I'm planning on playing it on, on my Switch, but again, I want you guys to experience the same quality and just amazingness that Metroid Prime has. I've never played Metroid Prime 2 or 3, but I would love to play them. I was thinking of probably emulating it, but I don't know how to, to be honest. But Metroid Prime 4 just looks absolutely stunning. And again, if you want a way to play Metroid Prime 1 in a very good quality state, play it on Switch. You can easily put up $40 and just play it. Other than that, I will see you guys later. I love all of you, and please subscribe. Thank you.
Great practical joke, Jim. Got me go to the annex. No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!